down for first reading. The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1 in the name of the Honourable Henare.
Speaker, thank you. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, what reports has he received showing progress in lifting economic growth and creating new job opportunities?
Order. Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I've seen several reports pointing to steady job growth as the economic momentum created by a combination of government policies and the hard work of New Zealanders bears fruit. The OECD is now forecasting New Zealand will be one of the fastest growing developed economies next year, forecasting a growth rate of 3.6% in calendar 2014. The stronger economy is being reflected in employment indicators. For example, the MB Medium Long-Term Employment Outlook shows employment growth averaging about 1.6% a year, or about 36,000 new jobs each year on average up to 2016. In the same period, they project unemployment to fall to 4.8%.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Henare.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What other reports has he received confirming improvements in the job market?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, the government's economic program, and especially the business growth agenda, is creating the conditions for businesses to invest for jobs and growth, and that's exactly what's happening. The most recent ANZ Job Ad survey reveals that total advertising for jobs rose by a seasonally adjusted 4.5% in October, building on rises in the previous 4 months. That came from a rise in newspaper ads of 6.1% and internet ads rising by 4.2%. The ANZ noted this was the first time in 4 years that internet job advertising had increased for 5 consecutive months. The ANZ said, and I quote, "It's very encouraging that the labour market is finally lifting more markedly. Given already high household debt levels, income growth is the key to a more sustainable consumption upturn, not selling houses to each other at ever higher prices."
Supplementary question, Honourable Henare.
Mr Speaker, how is New Zealand's improving economy and labour market affecting trans-Tasman migration?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, it's affecting it very positively. I've seen a report from Hayes Recruitment Agency saying that New Zealand's buoyant economy is attracting the attention of an increasing number of Australians. Hayes reports that there's been but a 25 to 30% increase in inquiries from Australians about taking up permanent roles in New Zealand. That trend is supported by the latest migration data, which shows that the net loss of people to Australia has fallen every month since last December. In the October 2013 year, New Zealand had a net gain of 17,500 migrants, compared with a net loss of 2,300 in the previous year. The latest figure is above the average annual net gain of 11,300 migrants over the last 20 years and is almost certainly attributable, at least in part, to our favourable growth rate compared with many other developed countries.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
If the economy's going as well as he claims, why are 150,000 people unemployed, just as many as there were 3 years ago in the midst of a recession? And why are average and median wages growing at the slowest rate in 13 years?
That's right. Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, the member I know is, I think, pretty unaware of this event that occurred. It was called the global financial crisis. I appreciate it hasn't really permeated his understanding of economic life, but the reality is, well, actually, he says it's 5 years ago. He should pop out and go and have a look at what's happening in the US. He should have a look at what's happening in Japan. He should have a look at what's happening in Europe. He should have a look at what's happening in UK. And then he should thank his lucky stars that he lives in New Zealand.
Order. Order. Supplementary question. Order. Supplementary question, the Honourable Henare.
Mr Speaker, what other indicators show that the economy is performing better than it was 5 years ago?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, other than employment rising, unemployment falling and inward migration increasing, we are making considerable progress as a country in reining in debt. Before our first budget back in 2008, Treasury warned that if the government continued on the previous government's spending track, we would run deficits forever and net debt would soar to over 60% of GDP by 2023 and never come down. So under our careful and prudent policies, we are now on track to achieve a surplus in 2014-15. Net debt is expected now to peak below 30% of GDP, despite dealing with the $15 billion expected cost of the Crown of rebuilding Christchurch. And, Mr Speaker, back in 2008, the current account deficit was around 8% of GDP, and New Zealand's net external debt was 84% of GDP. The current account deficit is now below 4% of GDP, and net external debt is 71% of GDP. The economy is in much better shape than it was 5 years ago, but there's more work to do, and this government is doing it.
Question number 2, Tracy Martin.